Hi everyone, welcome back. Okay, so welcome to the last video here. I'm gonna kind of do this one in sections. There's going to be a lot of detail work that I'm going to put up into the front of the painting. I have to reestablish some of my atmosphere back through here. I've got myself some good ideas. I did spend about an hour in here working on some of the horses, going back and saying, okay, that's what I want to do. But I've got to get more movement and stuff into the ground. I'm going to explain all of that to you, how we're going to do that. And then I want to go through a process that I've done. I teach into portraits and stuff, but I do it every once in a while in some of the landscape paintings, depending upon how stiff I feel my painting is. And I like these guys up here, but I feel they're a little bit stiff. And that is what John Howard Sandon, who was fantastic, he created the 29 steps to creating a beautiful portrait. And one of his last steps he created was called Particularizing the painting. And that's where he says you take it from the image into a portrait, okay? From a painting to a portrait. And that's where those very powerful, simplistic strokes, those marks come in. And so I'm going to do that towards the end of this particular video. But first what I want to do is I want to come back up here. I have to correct my sky, set my depth, set the final all back through here, so then I can read very well through the rest of the painting. And we have, there is a lot of depth and a lot of work that I still want to add some of those, maybe some of that rabbit brush and stuff. And for those of you that don't live out in the prairie in some of these plateau areas like we do here, this is the rabbit brush that you see. And so you can add some other kinds of colors, but you get this kind of brush look that I want to add out through here. And I think that would add quite a bit to the painting. So we'll get there. But right now what I want to do is get the sky back up. So just like what I did in the very beginning video, setting the sky, I'm going to take some of my Sapphire Blue, which is my shortcut color, maybe a touch, just a touch, guys. It takes just a touch of this Quinacridone Violet into this, just to violet that over a bit. And I want to model it with some different colors too. I'm looking for up around the 9, which is right about what I have there. So, but it's slightly violet. And then I'm going to use my big brush. I'm going to put some extender into this, and I'm going to rework the light color in and into dark color into my sky. My mountains are back through here, so I'm just going to reshape some of them. Now this looks very light, but a 9 will dry down to an 8. Does that make sense? And so we know that. But I want this. I want to create some of this movement. Now I'm going to add some blues to here. So I don't like to, I don't like to just always use this one color. Does that make sense? So we know the sky from all the other videos, the sky gets a little darker. And a lot of times I like to go up to down to a 7 or so. Down up at the top of the sky, it gets a little darker. And so we'll look, that's right about a 7, maybe a little bit more blue into that, and model this up. This is going to stay wet for a while, so I don't have to worry, right? And we'll take some of this, and I'll model this in, and I'm going to, so that's a pretty color, and it will dry darker. I'll just do this corner because I have to reach a long way with you. I'll just show you what I'm going to do, and then I'll go do it, and we'll reset it. But I'm going to take some of this right up over here, right? And that's real pretty. See how it just puts in more of the evenness, but I don't want it that even. So I want to model it up even more. So a little more blue, little bit more violet here, sapphire. That's why I love sapphire. It's a nice, and we could also, you could grab a touch of this phthalo and see it's the blue-green of the colors, and it would do a really nice look in here as well. But now, so I want to keep it like the value 9 to an 8 down here along the horizon line, but I want to let some of those other colors come up here along the top. And I've got quite a bit of paint here, so I could even start doing this as I get close. And this is what I want to do. I want to work this atmosphere. See this? You just cross, try not to take too long a strokes with it, but I want to leave some of that atmosphere. We call that the atmosphere. Lights and darks in the atmosphere. Now, with some of the other paintings that you see me do, we'll go right down. Let me just kind of wipe some of this extra color out of the brush. Take a little more extender and thin out some of this blue here. Thin it out again. And I don't mind doing this. If you really like your mountains, you don't have to do this. I love to do this because I reset my painting this way. I still see everything, but see, this is what pushes back in a little bit of this thin atmospheric color is what pushes in the depth to your painting. Does that make sense, guys? So don't be afraid of it. And you can always take it, like, see, if I get it too heavy like that, you just take a little bit of water, which is your solvent. Take a little bit of water here and just wipe it back. It's not going to hurt it a bit at all. But this is going to tell me now, because I got this back one here a little bit dark, but see, I can just start wiping that. And this is a technique, actually, the Dutch landscape painters did a lot. And so it's a good old technique. And this will tell me some of the final values that I need to paint in there to start getting some more depth and stuff into the painting there. Okay, and I'll look at that. But now, when I did the Almost There, the last Western we worked on, Almost There, and I said, I really like to do those clouds. I like to take a cloud. When I put the cloud on with a knife, I'm going to do some wispy, kind of deserty clouds here. And so they basically are wispy. They're drier. They don't have a lot of moisture. Now, in this guy, I put on a little heavier. I actually put a rainstorm in the back. But I think with the horses and everything, I don't need that back there. That'd just be too much. I just want to add some depth. So I'm going to take some open medium, which will help keep my colors thick. I'm going to take some white, and I'm going to try to stay out of that. A little bit of the blue, but some white, and open medium. See how much thicker? This keeps the color than this over here, with the extender being thinner. And what this does is, this gives me some of the clouds that I just smear into that blue, like this. And that gives me these wispy looks of these clouds. See that? So, and I want to put maybe a little heavier one right up there, right? And if I want that to be really soft, I can run through with the brush, just like this, to help soften it up. If I want to give, let's say, so I want this high cloud look like this. You can create movement by pulling in the direction that you want this to go. Let's just pull down slightly there, and you'll see I create this wispy little movement here, you know, down or uplifting motion there to the cloud. And I'm going to keep these clouds really soft. So what I'm going to do, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go along here. I'm going to work pretty fast, and I'm going to put those clouds on, and that's what I want. That's what get those wispy clouds. We're not going to go in there and shadow them or do any of that other stuff. It doesn't need to be. And then I'm going to come back in. Now, we did some blues. We took a little burnt siennas and some of our beiges here, and a little bit of that phthalo blue. This makes some beautiful back hills and stuff back here. And remember, light is to the left, and shadow is to the right. So we'll just, and I still see lightly through some of the stuff I've done before, so I can still see those back hills, but I want it a little bit heavier, a little more blue, a little more touch of burnt sienna. I love that blue burnt sienna. And let's just darken it just a bit here. Just tap it around the corners of your brush here. tap some of that interest around there. And then and if I need to soften it, I'll pick up a little sky color here and soften it. And I'll restate some of my back mountains back there. Sometimes I like a real good dose of the warm, like a little bit of that, medium beige in there like that. This looks great, okay? So I'll go back through and kind of clean up. I want to see this real light along the horizon, and then I'm going to whisper in some of those clouds, and then we'll come back and we'll start moving forward, okay? So give me a couple minutes. So that's what I'm going to do. I have to reach way over there, which means I have to slide my canvas way over here. So, but you'll get the idea. You'll see it down, okay? All right, I'll see you guys in just a minute. Okay, there we go. So now you can see I got that pretty much in there. Let me center that up just a bit. I wispied those clouds over there, reset just a few of the hills through there with some more colors. And I like to work fast. So if you're going to reset the hills and stuff in here, colors just a little bit thicker than what you do with the sky. Consistency has everything to do with it. And see these clouds, and this just all stays wet down for a while. But these clouds are really quick and easy. There, I just used the flat of the knife and just powdered it on, then just smoothed it out and ran a couple times through it with the brush, and it's done. Now and I worked down through here, so now we're gonna work forward. I don't really want to add any more depth than what I have there, but now I'm gonna start working forward, and I'll take some of my dirty sky here, just a little bit of it, and I watch the value. I want to try to keep it maybe up around a 7 or an 8. It comes a little bit darker, so here it is as an 8, right? And so just a touch, maybe a touch lighter than that. Let's see. Yeah, that's a beautiful color. So I put this on right in this area. I'll work it over here as well, but I'll put this on and then thin it out as it comes forward, right? And so it's a glaze that I put on. Now, while that is wet, I'll just make sure I've got enough on here to really soften. I'll bring just a little bit of it up over here, maybe a bit up over this little ridge line that I want to have here. Now, I'll build the next little line, and I'll start looking at some of my photo reference where you see the ones way in the back there. And some vertical movements, some burnt siennas, some blues. But I want to keep the values up lighter here, okay? So we want to give the feeling of the burnt siennas, that southwest kind of look. But, maybe around a 7 or so. So that's actually down almost to a 6. So that ought to be okay. Let's, because it dries down, right? And as we get going, we can, we can adjust it with more glazes and other colors later on. But I want to get some variations. And remember, shadows to the left, lights to the right here, smaller here, and some of this movement. I want to create that little valley right there that the river is going to come out of. But a bit of the movement, little horizontals, some verticals to suggest some of these little cliff faces and stuff like that here, right? But soft, a touch of those blues coming through, some little touches of some horizontal movements, but your movements stay very small because here the movements, are bigger. Out there, the movements stay smaller. A little bit of the beige and the blue sky here. Soften this out a bit coming forward, right? We can take a little bit of that lighter beige and some blues, and we can create some horizontal movements here. Take that up to those edges so these little cliff faces here aren't as huge, right? Create some horizontal movements here. Maybe a touch of that warmer yellow. Just, you're working small amounts of color, because this is further back, you don't need huge amounts of color here. And a little bit, see, it mixes up with that blue. So you have a choice here of, you know, mixing the blue into the color like we did in the last video, which helps me, you know, maintain that. Or you can glaze it and work into the wet blues and stuff that you have there. Keeping it soft, that's the main thing. Keep it soft. We want to get some of this idea of the cliff faces, but not a lot of detail to them because they're way back there, right? We don't want to come in and do a tremendous amount of detail here. We want to keep it soft and, you know, create like the little alluvial plains coming out of the edge of that one there. You know, just an idea of it. It pushes it back, but it becomes more like that sky, right? That's what we're doing. And just keep it simple. Don't get too complicated. Keep it simple and go pretty quickly through here. Let's put a little bit heavier right in there of a mark. And maybe a little beige and white, maybe a tiny bit of the yellow in there, just so that yellow shows up a bit. Put a bit of that plain in there. Okay, there we go. And tap it around a bit to create some different marks and interest, but you see you pick up a little bit of the blue and some of those other colors in there. Now, you could, I mean, depending on how much orange and stuff you deposit in there, you could start picking up a little bit of this. So let's just add a little bit of the orange to some of this. Yes, little touches of it, hits of it there. Lights and darks of it. Back in here. And as a matter of fact, I think what I'll do, just for interest, I'll take this and let's break this right back up. Let's take some of this out, like it's almost two of them there. We'll open some of that up. So I'll take some light sky and carry right down through that to open this and carry. So we'll have a couple of them there started out. So it breaks it up. See, like two. There's two there. And, you know, that's one of the problems that I had, you know. A lot of my early career as an artist was decorative painting. And so we paint very rhythmic, very repetitious. And so I tend to go back to those 30 years of doing that I did and get very rhythmic sometimes. And I'm trying to stop that and adding some of this back interest. Let's get just a touch maybe of a little bit of that brighter color in some of that. Pick up some of that orange, just hints of that orange back there as it comes forward. So now what I'll do is, so I don't have to reach, so you see how I do this. I work it forward, right? And bringing the color forward, now I'll come back up over there. I could, you know, no darker than this. That's getting pretty dark over there, but I want to bring in a bit of that orange. So I'll look for some of those places, and I don't want it to be like super even. I want it to be jagged all the way across. But what really does it, and this is very important, where it really does a lot of it is your light. You got to remember your horizon line, the value 9, is what's setting the depth of your painting. So if you need more interest, rather than go real dark, go light. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here with my white, a little raw sienna, and medium beige. And I'm going to keep it up here 8 to a 9. And I'm going to add a little bit more of that through here. And that is through the process of what we call simultaneous contrast. that will make the back hills there actually appear a little darker. Okay, when I haven't darkened them, they'll appear darker because I just added some of that interest, that color in there. See? There we go, just like that. Now that'll dry. I might have to adjust it a little bit as it dries. We'll see, okay? But I'm going to stop now. I'm going to go over and fix that other side, and then we'll come forward again, okay? All right, see you in a minute. Hi everyone, okay, welcome back. So what I did over here, and let me just pull this back up over here for you guys, get it centered back up a bit. As you can see, I put the light colors and see the little bit of streaking that I left in here. So as it starts to dry down, then I'll make like slightly lighter colors and just hit it in a little bit. Remember, you can go pretty light. You can go all the way back to your sky back here. So if I wanted to add more interest to my back mountains and stuff, and I'm going to push that back a bit, then I can do that with putting in a little bit more light rather than going darker. I don't want to go darker. But if I can take some light color like this, if I wanted to break that up and create some other smaller little, interest areas onto the mountains back there, if I wanted to. But I pretty much think I like it, so I'm just gonna leave that. But you can see you can do that. You can, as it dries down. That's the one thing about acrylics. Oils dry about the same values, but acrylics dry one value darker. So, and we tend to get our acrylic painters tend to get our paintings a little bit too dark. So you got to work way up into that light spectrum, what we call the key of the painting. You got to keep the key of the painting up quite a bit, especially as you're back there into that background, because it's going to dry down. Okay, so let's move forward now. So I'm going to take some of this softness. I'm going to leave some of these highs and lows and softness in there. I want to come in a little bit more yellow, brighter yellow, some beige and some yellow. Maybe some of my raw sienna, not mix it, but kind of model it all together here, light values. And I want to use this, and this is going to be light, so hang on. Okay, streaking through some of this area right in through here. I want to establish some of these highs and lows and lights. And so when you look back through, some of these other horses and stuff, you'll see some of that real light that hits right back up in there. And so we want to do that. And it's going to dry down, but we want to also create some browns and some other colors to softly push this. This is our interest now up in here, and push that into our horses there. Just kind of scumble it like this, and this is my 3/4 inch brush, and I'm just creating some of that light interest in there. And then, so everything that we have done so far, you don't want to go in there and cover it all up, but everything we've done so far is kind of showing through. Does that make sense? So we don't want to cover it up. Now you can add some open medium, because this will help the color stay thicker, but it will also give you some transparency. So I'm going to work this right in through here. Small movements, but work some of this in and around and create some of these highs and lows. But every once in a while, I like these little touches of changes of the color, which is what you see in these as you get into the back. Now, sometimes I do that with my knife. I'll take and add little changes like that, modeling a color like that with the knife. That looks good right there. You can take some of it out with some other dark colors. What I've done on other Westerns is that I add I'll just model up a little bit of this dark and add some small little touches, little verticals to break up the long line of the light. Just a few verticals in there, and again, that just adds more visual interest. And then as I come up, further up into the painting, then I'll make those verticals a little bit longer or a little bit more. But let's just drop and you look at that and you go, oh, you lost your mind. No, it's okay. It's okay. We'll thin some of this out. We'll take our 3/4 inch brush and just move that through and soften. I like some of that shadow that's there because that adds the interest, right? I don't want to cover up my horse, but that adds the interest. But you see, by doing this, guys, by scumbling or dragging your brush back over, and this also, if you don't want to use your big expensive 3/4 inch brush for it, I had it out here. You can use one of those, baster brushes, the Chinese bristle brushes you can get for $1. You can use those. Those work really well as well. As a matter of fact, you'll see me use one in just a little bit here as we come further forward. But this is what I'm looking for to break it up. It makes it look like the little planes, like there's stuff going on out there in the plains. Let's put just, now you got to remember, light is to the right, so we keep some of our light here coming off to the right there. But yeah, that works. A few little bits. I just look to break up as this drying down, just to break up some of that solid color, and that just adds some of those streaks and it goes away. So we'll do like this back in here, and then as I get up in here, then what I do is I start to incorporate back into some of my colors for my my little cliffs, some of the southwest colors that I wanted to bring in there, right? And we got to get some darks in there, and to help bring it forward. So the darks are our burnt siennas. You can go burnt siennas in your sky blue to begin with. That grays that up. And so and see all of this that we have done over the past few days for me, just adds all of that interest now in there, right? And I want to leave some of the sky color showing in there as well. And then you can go dark, but we can't really go super, super dark. So you can also thin this out so there's not much of it. So it's a darker value, but there's not much of it for the depth because it's thin. Does that make sense? So we thin it out. So shadows are thin, lights are thick. That's the rule in landscapes. And so, but we can add some of that back here. You can use the smaller brush. I like to do it as simple as possible so that it doesn't come too far forward here. Let me try this and see what it looks like. And because you can see now all of this that I've done, over the few days that I've worked on this, is that the back and forth has just added all kinds of little color interest. I mean, look at what that mountains and stuff look like now. So, I can take some of this out with the horizontal or slightly movement there and open that back up. That looks probably a little better, I think. It's up to you. It's your painting. You can decide. Let's put a bit of the yellow in there, of the lighter yellow, streak through there, right back up to that, and leave some of those smaller marks in there, and pick up a bit of the light right where that little plane, that little graduated plane would be right in there. That's kind of nice. So it's quite a bit different than me on that one taking it further. Does that make sense? Yeah, and that's up to you. It's, how much and where and how you're going to do it, that's all up to you. I'm just going to small this down now and let that just disappear there. Right up there like that. And maybe add a touch of those southwest colors in there. And if I get it too dark, then I'll just come back when this is dry. I will just come back with some sky color and take it back out. So yeah, you can look at doing that. Let's set this one up, maybe a little bit of an angle here, that little break there to it, and put some lights in there, you know, and that, and again, you could also use just little touches of your knife in there as well. So, you know, your knife will sometimes put it on too heavy. Remember I said I always get it on a little bit too heavy, and then I painted it back out. So I paint out what I don't want on that. And but back here you want to keep those marks a little bit softer, everything a little bit softer. And so I have to lighten this back up. So I'm going to take some of those lights and rework this one, rework the shadow a little bit darker right back here where I want that shadow again. But then I need to get some of the lights back up in that cliff face. I want some of these back lights that cause this to recede a little bit. So what makes it recede is that the sky color and those lights, and so I want that back there to start to recede. So, you know, when you're looking at that, you got to see those purples and lighter colors that are here than these dark and brighter colors. So we have to get some of those lights and purples and stuff up here and make sure that we're keeping those incorporated into these colors. Does that make sense? As we're doing that, we're adding just a bit of those colors that cause this part here to recede back. And then I'll start adding some of the horizontals, some nice horizontals into there, and some nice verticals here. Nice verticals, nice horizontals. As I develop the very last part of this, keep some of those blues in there, work these colors again. But you can work it also a little heavier like I did that one right back there. If you desire, you can do that, okay? They both are going to have enough depth. So that's what I'm going to do, work that, and I'm going to bring the light back up into here. And, you know, so I can bring, that'll allow me to put more lights and darks and details out into here. So that's the next step. Do it again. Okay. All right. And then I'll do that, and then we'll come back and we'll keep moving forward. So we've got this good look starting to develop in here. Soften that out just a bit. You want, if it's receding, you want your marks to soften just a bit. You know, you're looking for the color more than anything. And then we'll let the marks really start to stand out here. Okay. All right. I'll see you guys in just a minute. Hi everyone, welcome back. Well, it's been another day. Sorry, grandkids all just showed up, so we have to, you know, have some fun with them too. So, but anyway, so what this morning when I came in, what I did was I just added a little bit of the grasses and some more rocks and just some of that movement back through here. And of course, you saw me finalize or put up some more interest and stuff like that in these horses that are there. And I have to do a few more linear perspective lines there to kind of push them back, but I'll do that. That's easy. To do all of the grasses and stuff, this is what I use. These are my favorite kind of brushes. I use these old bristles. I mean, you can get these anywhere at even a Walmart or anywhere, and they're just, you know, less than $1 a piece, 50 cents a piece or so. I trim them, like here I cut off, and here I fanned it out and stuff for it. And this one I cut off, and I let a little bit of paint dry up in it so they get kind of stiff. And you've seen me do this before. I just tap some of this, and I'll scrub around like this, some of the colors and stuff in through there, and you know, make some of the different you know, coloring and stuff that you see back there. I might put a little bit of green and stuff back in there. I might do that still. But I've pretty much got this up into here, so I'm going to start finalizing the painting. So I'm going to start adding some of the details up here onto the horsemen, to the Wranglers here. I've pushed back some of these cliffs here. They've had some a little bit of the blue added into them, so they push further back. And I wanted to show you one of the things that what happens. So, you know, one of the things when I'm starting to visualize or finalize something is I take a little bit of extender and I'll put it up over this here, and you'll see how it wakes up the color. See the difference here between here and here? It wakes up the colors here to what they're going to be like when you varnish it. So, and it's really kind of neat to do this. And you know, I do this towards the end of the painting. I'll put a little bit on them. On these guys, I don't have much extender left here, but I'll push some on here just to see, and on my rocks and stuff here, just a light coat. You could also do this with, you know, if you want it to dry fast, you could do this with, you can see how that just comes forward, right? You could do it just by misting some water. And that's what you know, you're taking basically the paints from a matte to a semi-gloss, and that helps you visualize what they're going to look like, you know, when they're getting finalized there. So anyway, that's really good. You know, that works there. And if I do that, and so I can paint up on top of this, and you can glaze up on top of this. I like to do that. You can look at it and see, you know, what you want to do, but you don't want to leave any puddles, especially if we're going to do the details. Now, as we head into the details, one of the things I put out, this is my container of the thickening agent that I have here. So there's just a tiny little bit, and that's more than enough. And I added some right now to this raw sienna. You can see how this raw sienna is starting to thicken up. I added some right to that because I want to use that in some, I love this this raw sienna, and so I want to thicken up some strokes with the raw sienna. Also a few strokes with some white, and for those of you that haven't seen, you know, how it works, it takes just a tiny bit. So I'll put out some white here because I want to, towards the end of my painting, I put on some, I go through, and I was very much influenced by John Howard Sandon, the portrait painter John Howard Sandon. And he always says, and I've mentioned this to you already in this video, the particularizing of the painting. This is where you take it, you know, basically a painting to a portrait. And so you are, you know, you go through with textured strokes or marks and stuff that it really stands out as a painting. So if I take just the tiniest little bit of this thickener and I add this, you slowly add this to it, and you whip this up, you can see how the white here is starting to get thicker and thicker and thicker here as I do this. And you just whip it up really hard, because it's got, you know, the medium itself is very thick, and so we want to make sure we mix it up really well. Let me add just a little bit more of that into here. It just takes a little bit. So, you know, when you get a jar of it, one jar will probably last your entire painting career. But you can whip it up like this, and so you create, and you can make this all the way to a modeling paste if you wanted to thicken it up there. But I like the thicker paint here. I don't like it to add too much, because it'll get sticky. And sometimes I'll mix the real creamy, so you can see the difference here. Here's the real creamy bit, and then here's the one that has the, you can see, you get a lofting of it there. You get that. So I'll use that when I'm coming in and I want to add some, you know, some final marks or some textures or something. So maybe I want to reestablish the thickness on the front of the chest of the horse here. I may take just a bit of that raw sienna, which will warm it just a bit. Maybe a bit of the blue, which helps gray that. Just a tiny bit of that in there. Gray that up and warm it. But then I'll add the thicker white here. And so you can see, you can pick up a big dollop of that, and you can lay that, you can start laying that down texture-wise, and I'll leave some of this texturing on the horse here, and because it'll dry down. But this texturing also helps bring this more to the front, and you can drag it around a bit, you know, and just create that mottled interest that's there on the front of the horse. So if you know, a lot of times when I'm painting like this, and I'm doing final details, after you've painted something several times, it'll feel like it's overworked and flat. And so I come through, when my painting, I start to feel this that way, which happens, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's just the way it is. you know, you can come back and add some of these marks that give a life to it, an energy to the painting. The brush marks, you know, that is what really makes the painting. And if you're doing it like I'm doing it here over a real thin coat of extender, you can slide it out and you know, make some of these you know, these light touches almost into like little shimmers here, and they add just that extra little degree of life to the painting. Let's take some burnt sienna and some of our raw sienna, and then we'll lighten that up with some of our thicker white here, right? Maybe not that light, but this, it feels amazing to paint with this. And see, I like this thickness here. This is what I call the mottled brush. See that thickness that's there, and I can establish some of that thickness. And you got to remember, it's going to dry. It may look like it's a real super light value there, but that's going to dry down at least a value. Now that's a little bit light, and that's okay. What I'll do is I'll just pick up some more raw sienna, some more burnt sienna right over here off to the side here. Maybe add just a little bit of the light to that. And I'll move this as half tones, just marks of half tone right there on either side of that horse's hip. And of course, it will soften out. Now, if you get a cloudy, let me just show you this. This is what happened. If you get a cloudy mark, now see, that looks kind of cloudy there. And that looks cloudy because the value that I'm putting on is too light against the shadow. So you need to really develop that shadow again. If you get any kind of cloudy area, go back almost to pure color of the burnt sienna and the raw sienna. Get rid of the white, get rid of that cloudiness there. And that'll get rid of the white, it'll get rid of that cloudiness. It'll drop the value back down. But I'm gonna take a couple marks of this here and just kind of loosen up that hip on the horse here and draw that across a bit. And this is where I really love to put on that energy of the mark. Okay, so the mark, let's go back just a touch lighter there. Now that I've surrounded that, see, I can go back to that light again and just hit some of that light mark there on that hip and drag a little bit of that through there. That looks pretty good. Let's put just a touch of that here on the front of that horse's head there. There, like that. Now I hit over his eye, which makes his eye just a touch cloudy. And so you'd go back and, you know, touch into a few things. I like to, you know, like I've told you guys from the very beginning with this, I really like painting with a super large brush and using just the corner of it for a lot of the work, because that to me makes it more casual. But that worked pretty good there. I'm going to get rid of that blue just a second and go back into some of this. And you can also do this. You know, there's a lot of artists that are, you know, will come in and put in some of these marks with their knife and leave that textured edge and stuff there, which looks really great. You know, or you can put on the edge and then work into that just with your brush, dragging that around till you get some of that, the shape and stuff there that you like. But I like that. That works out. And I'll carry some of that color over to the other side. This is the open medium. And I love the grays here, so I'll mix up a little open medium, a little bit of sapphire, a little bit of white here, and we'll add some open medium to it. And when I head towards a shadow, I let it go thinner. When I'm going out into the textures, that's when I go heavier, okay? So it follows the good rule of landscapes, that shadows are thinner, right? So we'll push that in there. That looks pretty good. And I don't want to lose that dappling there. So a little bit more, a little heavier. And we'll just touch into a little bit of that there. just looking at my edges and looking to find some nice colors there. Finding a good half tone in between some of that. That's pretty good there. That looks good. So you can see that just kind of brings that whole horse here right to life. Let's take that with some of our lights right here and just dapple that through a touch. That's pretty good. Look for little halftones. And I try to do it with as simplistic as a mark as possible. So let's go back up like up to here. We'll take some sapphire. Let's take a little bit of phthalo blue, which is a brighter blue, and some white, with the thicker white actually is what I need. And we'll come up here with this thicker light, pick up some of that, and let's hit this front edge right there. Boom, there it is. And we'll come with the blues and a little bit of burnt sienna, darken it down just a bit here. There we go. Just draw that across. Let's hit that one more light. So I pick up quite a bit of it here and I'll hit that mark. And that, see, that's the casualness of that, leaving that mark. So it's kind of like the way in which I, some real complicated paintings like this one's very complicated. It's like I spend, well, here, several days, but several hours finding the tone and establishing the look. And now I'm coming back with some final, really heavy, textured strokes that are bringing, elements forward. Does that make sense? That's what I'm concentrating on. So let's bring this nice shine, this nice shoulder right here up just a bit here. There we go. A little bit of texture. And I try to set the texture and the shape. So the top of his shoulder would go across like that. So I'll set that texture kind of like that in that area. He'll have the front of his arm. Of course, we've got to do his hand and the reins and stuff like that. But, you'll see I'll set that texture right in there like that. Maybe a touch of that light. Maybe there's just a bit of the light right there. If it's too heavy, I'll tap into it just to take it out just a bit. But I like the marks. I like to leave the marks. And the thing is, you got to remember that your paints will dry a bit darker. So, don't get them too dark. Or don't worry about being too light, too. That's the other thing. So let's put just a few marks right across here for like his jeans. So I see just a couple real quick little marks. Let's just pull down a few marks right here that will get some movement right there into his jacket. Maybe his back shoulder over here. We'll hit just a bit of that. Not quite as light. We'll hit just a bit of that. Let me reestablish the shadow, a little phthalo and burnt sienna right there. That works. And see, and this is where I try to simplify my marks. And, it's real simple. Simplify your marks so that, just the brush marks add that interest. So here's a gray, burnt sienna into blue and some sapphire. We'll carry some of that right back up over here, up onto this part, maybe a little bit underneath his hat. Here, let's put just a touch of that right there on that hat. Let's go a little heavier with some of the whites right into that gray. This is going to be for his shirt. Now, we can warm that, a little bit of that sienna, right? Nice thick white here. So that's going to go a little bit lighter. Pick up a dose of that. Boom, right there. And tap out a little shadow, just take some of that out. Let's go back and pick up that light again, right in here. There we go. Keep your marks super simple. Simple. Heavier into some of that light. Pick up that texture And just lay that on there with this mark as simple as possible, so that, and you can see now, you can see that texture, see how it's bringing some of those areas forward. So I'm going to add a bit of that light. Now, sometimes if you're dealing with little stuff, go to a smaller brush or pick up your knife, and you'll see a lot of times I will just do the edges of some things with my knife. Put on some of those marks right with the edge of my knife, which, you know, so here, maybe I drag that right around some of the light side here of his hat, right? So I put a little bit right there. You can also, and, you know, depending upon, you know, how good you are with the knife, but, you know, you could do that, or use like a small brush like this one and just drag the corner there. You know, I like that. That works as well. This is very warm back here, so I'm going to add a little bit of that cool right back up over there on that side. Maybe a touch of that warmer sienna and stuff back here. That just nice intermediate there. So it just works so well, guys. Let me take a little bit of that with this smaller brush right there. That just works. Let's take some of our yellow, our raw sienna, nice and thick, some thick white, model that together. And let's hit that shoulder line there, right there. And maybe just a touch more raw sienna, drag some of that down. A few little marks. It just kind of breaks that up a bit. Maybe a touch here on his chaps there. That looks good. Get down to some shadow, burnt sienna, raw sienna. Bit of that right in there. Yeah, leave some of those marks. Let's take some of that light, heavy or light yellow. You can even thicken up that yellow oxide too, you know. And let's just drag a little more textured light right up there, like that. You can see it really, this is the sparks that make your painting. And there we go. Yeah, I love these last sparks of interest. Let's darken that down. A little bit of raw sienna here. Maybe just a mark or two right in that mid area. And then we'll add a touch of the burnt sienna to that. Maybe even a tiny touch of blue, which helps your shadow, right? So the shadow that I use. And we'll just take a few marks there. Yeah. See, and boy, when you're painting with thicker paint like that, it's just a lot of fun. Let's drag this like this is part of his hip right there. That's just pulling up and around. That's good. Let's use... So I'm adding textures to some of these final little details. The edge of his saddle there. I might give them like a little bedroll or something there, you know, up on that side. So, yeah, see how that just kind of brings them a little bit more life. Let's just add a mark or two. That would drag around. Sometimes when I'm dragging around, like, you know, they'd have that belt that kind of holds that up and around. I'll do that with my knife, just rotating the edge, because you'll get just a little tiny, I know it's hard to see, but you'll get just a little tiny edge that comes out every once in a while, and it looks more natural that way. So we'll do that, and I'll take some of this light, maybe a bit of the blue, and a bit of my grays and stuff here. This dirtyish color right up here on that hat. Got it down into his hair there, so I get to fix that. A little burnt sienna and blue here. We'll just put in that shadow there. There we go. Now, let's go back to the lighter flesh. We'll add a few, well, actually, while I have that shadow there, burnt sienna and blue here. Nice shadow. Let's give him the idea here of his boot. There, we wanted to get that through because we're going to put his stirrup there, right? We're going to bring down the stirrup and bring that out. The stirrup will be, we'll give him kind of the metal stirrups here, a little more gray. I had both. I had wooden and metal stirrups. So, there, that's a little thick, Dave. But we'll, there. And so I'll start setting up some of these ideas. Now, you know, he's pretty good size, so you could do a lot more detail if you want, you know, inside of here. I'm not going to do a tremendous amount. I like the impressionism of the brush and stuff coming down here and setting that in. And so I'm not going to do a tremendous amount of detail. I like the spontaneity of the brush, but let's bring his heel back to the outside a bit, right in there. And a bit of the burnt sienna and yellow, and here for that stirrup line, some of his girth strap. You know, just I like to use a small brush, like I said before. Sometimes I do this with, you know, a little round, but a lot of times I love to do it with a bristle so that it, you know, gets really casual and stuff. So, but that's up to you. Now, see, I just touched that and I flattened that out. And if you make a mistake, because everything else underneath it is dry, if you make a mistake, guys, rather than worried about it too much, just take your brush and a little water and scrub back into it and lift some of that back off. You can do that, you know, and shape up. So, and that works really, really well. So, you know, you don't have to worry about making a mistake there. Let's just drop this in. Right, and we can add some little details and stuff to the saddle here, little lights, little details. And again, I keep them very simplistic. There's others that I go very detailed with, but here I'm going to keep them very simplistic here. Everything there. And since I put that stroke on there, I'm going to take a little bit of light and yellow oxide and white here and bring the edge of his pants with a heavier texture right up in front of that. So you definitely see it up in front. So I love to push the textures really specifically towards the end. And let's just put the edge of that chap right up over that edge there. And just like that. That looks pretty good. So I'll go do some final little sketching in here as to set it up. You know, I could set like a little bedroll. Let me show you. If I feel like, and it doesn't really need it, but I do like doing stuff like this. So I'll take like a gray, medium beige, blue, and some white, and then we'll warm that with a little bit of yellow. And I'll just take that right across the edge here, just like that, just drawing it kind of, it'd be like a roll, right? And then you'll have, we'll take some of our shadow, right where it's going to be tied down, you'll have some shadow and stuff there. So we'll, but you see how loose the color is, right? And that's the thing, is that's what you want to do, is keep that color just flowing is what we call it, flowing here. And that's what creates the interest of it here. There we go. There, like that. Textures and stuff flowing through, and you can make like the little tie downs and stuff there. And the color is a little thick, so I'll give it a few seconds to tack up a bit before I add any more finals to it. But I try to keep the whole painting of it as simplistic as possible there. Let's give the other guy one over there too, a little bit darker. Here, slightly different color. Let's just give him one across his as well. There. And some shadow right where the tie downs would be, right in there. And a little bit of the light here. And a little thicker. I grabbed that thin by mistake. I wanted it thicker. There. And tap right up in here. So I leave a little bit of shadow where you would see the tie down. Blur that out a bit. There we go. And now let's go in and we'll start to put on, oh, there was my little bristle too. I like to do details with the bristle as well. But let's go on and we'll start to put on some little details here of the of that. And I think probably I'll use maybe that little flat again here. Let's rinse that out. So we'll have just the edge of a flat. Let's go ahead and put in some of the details here, and I'll do darker rains and bridle here. So, and I'll just kind of skip up over just a nice kind of an idea here. And if I came offline there just a bit, and I don't mind that because I'll just take a little light and just paint up by that, and it actually creates, see, it just creates a little more interest right there. So don't worry about getting it a little crooked. You can fix it. Up here by his ear, we'll push another line down here and right down the side of his face there. A little bit. You can, take a light if it's too much and just tap around it to break that up a bit, so it doesn't, so it's not too straight or, too perfect or something like that. We'll just suggest here, I'm just going to suggest the lower and upper lip there lightly, and, usually you have some of the silvery color, which is a gray, if you come down with a curb bit or something like that. So I'll add just a line, just an idea here, and just paint that up. Just an idea for that. I'm not going to get super great with that. And then we'll take some of this. Well, before I put that on, let me give him a hand. That would be a lot easier. So I'll give him a little hand here, a little light flesh, just right up there. And I want to push a bit of the blue along that edge there. Maybe a bit more of a light right on the front of that hand there. And just a bit of it because he's mostly got his hand closed, so you don't see that much of it. And just put in a little color and just, don't try to make a perfect hand or anything like that. This is impressionism, right? So we'll just drop that down right into there and just blur that edge just a bit. Sometimes I'll blur across the the reins and stuff a bit. And, you know, here I got a little thick right at the start of it. And again, just take your brush with a little water like this and just clean up and push up into it, and you'll thin it out, okay? Rather than trying to wipe it out and do it perfect every time, just take a little bit of water, clean your brush and take a little bit of water, run the edge, and you see how you can thin it right out, right? And we'll get the idea of the other one coming up there and maybe the edges of it pulling down like that. And we'll sketch around a little bit. Just the little tie downs now. They stick on there pretty well. Let's pull down some of that nice shadow here. Here. That's pretty good. And just kind of sketch around here. Just make a lighter brown here. And I love the impressionism of it. So you're just sketching with everything here. So we can give sometimes on the side like this, I'll give a few little, you know, hang down straps and stuff from the leather on the saddle. And, you know, you can just have a few of those. You can put up conches or anything that you want, little decorations or anything going on around here on the saddle. Just little marks, you know. Yeah, just little bits. But he's, like I say, he's big enough to do a lot of detail on there if you want. I'm not going to. I'm gonna leave it very impressionistic. So we'll just leave it like that. I kind of like that impressionism of it. I like that gray. I'm gonna push a little bit onto his hooves here. Just some of those disappeared there. Let's push a bit of that gray onto this one as well, just as an idea. There, onto those. And let's come back up over here. And we'll put on some of that little detailing here around his saddle. But we're going to keep him softer, so a few little dangling leather there. But everything here on him is going to stay a little softer. But the burnt sienna and the blue, which is such a pretty dark color, and you can add a little violet to it too. It's a great little color to go around and do any kind of like, you know, sketching and stuff that you want, you know, through him here. And there we go. Maybe a little bit more burnt sienna into that. Pull his hair down there. That looks good. Just a softer little face. There. And a bit of the dark here for burnt sienna and blue. Just the idea here of the bridle and stuff, maybe the idea of the range. You don't see too much of it, but we'll do it anyway. Little sketching of the dark. Just loosens up. So now you get a lot more brushwork on them, you see? So how much more life they get on them with that brushwork coming out. It's quite nice. I'm going to lighten up the front of this guy's face just a bit more. Maybe a bit of that siennas here. Maybe even a touch of that red. Let's lighten up his face. A little bit of yellow. Just a touch. Like a little bit of light right there. That's good. How much you bring them all up and stuff, that's up to you. I'm going to leave them very casual. Very, very casual. There. That's good. And but I like this kind of just, you know, making marks around that give him his pant color, the blues right here. Add a bit more color to that. There. So, yeah, get this gray. Burnt sienna, maybe the front of his boot coming up here through that. There we go. And now that that's dried up a bit, you can straighten it out a bit and, you know, add whatever kind of details that you want to add there. I think that's fine for that. I want just a touch of thicker white on that thicker bit of above his eye that, you know, gets that big bony structure above their eye. There. And that looks good. Then I'm going to move out. So I like all of that. I like what's happening there. Maybe just, I love this thick white. It's so easy to make those marks with that white that you thicken up. Now, you can also, which is really good, if you think it's too thick, you can add that open medium to it, which will cause it to slide a little bit. And, you know, they gives you longer drying time. So you can really play around with it a bit. There we go. That looks better. And let's just drop that light right there. That's good. Right in there. Good. That looks pretty good. There. But there are stuff here as I'm going to look at this one probably for a little bit. Normally when I paint, you know, I paint them really quick. But this one's been delayed several days because, you know, holidays and things going on. So it's been delayed actually quite a bit. So I normally don't delay that much. And so I'm going to have to look at it just a bit to make sure. But let's see, these are just little blurry shadows that I want to push that too straight right there. So I'm just going to push that. That looks great right there like that. Kind of rounds him up just a bit. But, you know, maybe a bit of that light here on the horse. So I'll look for where you can see definitions and stuff, you know, also. And light and dark definitions. So, in other words, here I've got a light background and stuff, and I'm going to put in a brighter little burnt sienna so the horse pops off of that. And I might, you know, I started to lighten it, but that wasn't going to show up enough, so I may end up darkening the horse here a bit right there so it stands out even more, you know. So, but look at how that bedroll sits there with that texture on it. That just looks amazing. And that's what I like to build, that texture. Let's just take a bit more of that yellow oxide and some of that white. Texturize that just a bit more. It just looks amazing. And you get that there up on those chaps and stuff there. That just looks great. Now, and if it's too bright a yellow when you're done, you could just wash a little burnt sienna over it and tone it on down. Okay, so we have that. Now let's you know, I'm going to go through the painting. So I went through here and I put in some little rocks, and I'll continue to do that. And I worked some of the horses, and you saw me work some of this stuff in here. But I want to especially up into this area, I am going to take a smaller brush, you know, like my 8 or a 10, you know, or here's my 6. This would probably be a real good one for that. But I'm going to take, and it's quite an old one. That one's quite an old one. Oh, here's my other one. This is, I'll take this one. I'm going to use some of my blue and my medium beige that makes that gray. Maybe add over here some of that nice thick raw sienna and some of our thicker whites to this. And I'm going to make some thicker colors for the rocks. And that's what I want to start bringing out as well. So grab some thick colors. Now, you can see right in through here. See how it's a little bit lost, and I want to create that third dimension look to it. So I have the edge of the rock lost right up against that edge there. So now I come back, and I'll be looking to put some light, maybe a slight change of color there. So this rock will come up in front of the ground that you see there. So you see that rock. Does that make sense? So I'll use some light strokes. I'll be hitting that light plane, bringing the light plane of that rock up. I can use maybe a little burnt sienna into that blue. We can use this for the receding plane, or recede a plane there on that rock. But I want texture now, so I want to do it as simplistic. See that simplistic mark? So I try to do it with as simplistic mark as possible. And that's what I start to say is the particularizing of the painting. Turning it to a painting that you're seeing these marks. Does that make sense? So yeah, look at that thick texture right there. Just boom, boom. So you're seeing the painting now, right? That's what really makes it go. Let's get a bit of that receding plane in there. And I just love that. And so that thick paint just slides on there. Really nice. Let's put some of that thick paint. Look at how it stands that rock right out, right there. See? The rock really stands up in front of where those other things are. The other ground is. And textures, this is what I say so many times, and especially in the florals, everything I do. See, there's not a whole lot of difference between painting a rock and a rose. And I say that all the time to you guys, and I have videos that show it. And it's learning where on that rose you put the textures, where on the rocks you put the textures that are going to, really make them pop forward. And, so I do shadows thinner and highlights, so I'm a little bit thinner now. See how I'm stretching it out on the palette? So my color is a little bit thinner here. And I stretch that out onto the palette. And then when I go up to the highlight, I'll go thicker. But I like to come back in here and look at the depth that starts to give these rocks, see? And just taking some of that and leaving those hugely detailed strokes in there. Little open medium, especially into those shadows, will help quite a bit. But look for some of those marks that you can, leave them just as simple as possible. One or two little strokes of the mark. The brush mark, right? That's what we call the mark, the brush mark. Maybe a little shadow there, right in here, a little bit. And then your values, your lights and darks and your values will come closer together as you go back. But I want to take a bit of this light, not as much texture. So I'll stretch it out on the palette here. Stretch it out, a little bit of thinner white maybe. Stretch it out, and I'll add some, but not a lot, of that color back over here into some of these guys back here. And some of that, through the painting here. Touch a few other little rocks, but not the texture that you have before, because you're receding back. Does that make sense? You're receding back through the painting. So we'll just touch a few that is not as thick and drag it around a bit right there. But I will come through with thick stuff on all of this up here. Just thick. And we'll get some thicker white. I'll make up thicker white here. And I will come back and hit these all again. Right up here. One more final time with some of those lights and really drive that light in there. And you can do the knife too, you know. You can take this knife, all this beautiful color that's right here. And look how thick it is. See how thick it is here? And you can drive that right into that rock there and leave some of those textures. You know, that a lot of the really, really good Western painters would just, I mean, they're how brave they are to leave those textures is amazing. I'm going to need to thicken this up a bit more. We'll grab some thicker stuff here. I love the palette, as it starts to get like this. The paints get, you know, I have them nice and thick, and that's what does all of these beautiful marks, especially on these rocks. Take a little bit of the brush and just drag that out. Yeah, that's so much fun. You know, just, there we go. Yeah, a lot of detail into that. So you see it, but see, none of that goes back up in here. You could, you know, put a few, you know, as you build up more textures and stuff up here, you can definitely add some further textures further back into your painting, you know. But you do it very controlled, very controlled. So I'll put something on like that. Let's take a little burnt sienna, some of our mid-tone here, and establish a bit of a receding plane here. So all of my receding planes and shadow planes are thinner in textures, right? So a little blue and a little burnt sienna. Let's maybe even a bit of the violet. That's your deep side here. Yeah, you could go greens, you know, we showed you some of that earlier as well. Add a few little touches of the shadow side there. Light's coming from the left, so your shadow there would be to the right. A little bit of yellow. That I love that raw sienna thickened out. Raw sienna sometimes is really thin. You know, it's just the nature of that, and you know, it just gets thin sometimes. And so, and if that ever happens, you just add a little bit of that thickener right to it, and it thickens it right up. So it's always good to have, you know, if you're you're painting, it's always good to have that thickener around that you need to, that you can adjust some of the thicknesses of your paints. But boy, howdy, see how it's really thick, and it just makes magnificent strokes on the rocks now. You know, just little marks here, through there. That's great. So dragging some of the, you could see some of the yellow oxides that did it back. As you go back there, you can put a little green into some of that if you want. You can detail back here a little bit more. The more detail you do up here, the more detail you can do later on, you know, back in other areas. So if you want to add a few little light touches of rock touches and stuff out here, that gives you more room to do more things, you know, into the back up through there. You know, that's up to you. But as you come forward here, we really want to work this nice forward part of the painting. Let me go up just a bit here and move that stop. So we want to work the forward part of the painting here. We want to take, and I probably should put out a little bit, since my burnt sienna is like almost gone. Here we'll put out, and my tube is almost gone of burnt sienna. So we'll put out a little more burnt sienna. But I want to put out, and I really like to get some of that concentration right up in here, up into this area. And I want to mix up some of the shadow, restate the shadows here on him. So let's take a little bit of our extender. Shadows are thin. Extender, some burnt sienna, a little bit of blue, maybe not that much blue, and then I want to thin it out. So we're very thin, very, very thin. inky consistency here. And we'll push shadows. Just lightly brush it like this. Brush and let some of it sit over the lights, hitting a few of the lights. But we're going to cast the shadow back, mostly coming back up over here to the right side here. So go up just a bit, just like you would on the rock. We'll push a little heavier, and we'll just drag that cast shadow out there like that. Maybe just a touch more blue into that so it's a little cooler. That's a little warm. So I'll push a little blue, a little cooler, and I'll leave streaks and stuff in it. That works. Let's push this one in. Okay, so a little bit back here, a little bit back through the legs, a touch right back here. So that's the cast shadows of the horses there, right? Here we go. Yeah, and boy, you can really, at least for me, as an artist, I really feel the difference of doing this over several days. I don't like it as much, you know. I lose my energy in painting it. I'm just going to drag some of this brush over it, break some of that up. It'll take some of it off of the highs and the textures that I have there in the paint. And I'm going to grab some of my light, a little burnt sienna, a little bit of this light, some of this kind of color, and just drag it through here. Here I have the start of some bushes and stuff, but I want to almost like create a little rocky situation up here in the front. I love in the front of my paintings, and you'll see that in a lot of the westerns, a lot of landscapes, I love textures into the front of the paintings. That is I really want you to go like that into the painting. So it's those textures that are going to do that. And then I'll take some burnt sienna and some blue here, just like that. And we'll add a few little shadow marks. That's a little too blue. Here, a little burnt sienna into that. But I'll do this too. I'll push it around like this color because I like the casualness of the marks. And, you know, and that's the whole thing that I've been concentrating on for the last few years, is getting my marks more casual. So I'll just come right back through that again and use horizontal, verticals. Remember, I do a lot of horizontals and verticals, and I want to create this. On some westerns, I'll smooth it out and almost make like the hoof marks and stuff coming up, and that's really cool too. So you could do stuff like that, little bits, and give ideas of the little hoof marks and stuff coming up and through, and that looks really nice. But chunk it all up through there, you know. That's let's take a little more raw sienna, some of our white. Wish I had that thicker white again. I have to make some more, but drop some of that in here. A little bit too light on that, but that's okay. Just take something and darken that down a bit and just pull through it. That's how thick that color is right up here. I love that thick color, and just makes incredible ground here. Incredible looking ground. Tap some of that around. So I have, when I do this, see, I have one side of the brush light, the other side of the brush shadow, and so I can work shadow or light, just flipping the brush over here. We'll work some shadow, some other marks. Just creates dirt. That's what we want. So you can see I'll spend a lot of the last few minutes and stuff of a painting and really develop the textures of that painting, and dirt and things going on, and you know, I love that stuff. So I got all this, and then it stops pretty easy, you know, pretty quickly back through here. So I'll break up some of this back through here with just some textures and stuff, so it doesn't stop so quickly. Does that make sense? So, you know, the whole thing for giving the impression of depth is that whatever you establish here, you slowly soften it to blue, to the sky back there. That is it, you know. So, you know, like I showed you with the value scale and everything, I'll go through all of this with some, I'm going to add a little bit of this color back up in here, and you can see it traveling through, right? That's what I want to do, travel it through. So I'll travel some of that color, and that's what makes it really pretty. Let's grab a little bit of that light with that, maybe a touch of that yellow. Just travel some of that through like that. There we go. Lots of stuff going on, thinner, 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 going back. But I have to develop some of the heavier texture still up here. Maybe even a slight slope to the ground here. So I'll slope it slightly here, and then so build up all this, and then slowly as I go back here, I'll soften some of this out. Smaller horizontal marks. That is your linear perspective. Does that make sense? So larger, so whatever I show here, so if I show a nice wider mark right here, coming in right in there like that, almost like the little slope of the ground and stuff, I'll show that in there. And then the same type of mark, just like the size of your rocks will show up here, but thinner and smaller. And it's just like making a smaller tree as it goes back. And the more you do that, the more you push back all of those horses and stuff. So I'll be looking at that and making sure that I get these horses right in the right perspective and stuff, and you know, and how much I want to bring them up. I still think, you know, I originally had him a little bit larger, and then I painted him down, but I might end up just adding a little bit more to him to bring him just a touch more forward, a little bit bigger. So, and in front of those and stuff, so. But I'll look at that for a while. This guy's gonna make me look at him for just a little bit. I find I don't, when I paint, I find if I paint, you know, and get my impression, and I, you know, basically the same day, 1 or 2 days, I don't have a problem with it. But if I take longer than that, and you know, things start and stop and life gets in the way, I have a harder time, and you know, with picking up some of those, you know, the idea and the impression of it, or the perspective of it. I have a harder time with it, so I have to refer back many times to my original drawing and make sure. So anyway, so that gets him down through there. I like the cleaned up edges and stuff on his hat. Probably need to do a little bit more of that. And this is where I go back now to some of my finals, you know, into the detailing here on the painting. I will revisit a lot of areas back and forth. This is just a little bit of the light gray. And I'll revisit these areas here and try to, you know, clean up edges or lose edges, lose back edges, decide if I need to, you know, have a little bit more of a light maybe, or some of that color, some of that beautiful Sienna's color to carry that orange color, you know, back up in here. Do I want that? But I want the kind of the mesas and the prairie and all of that kind of stuff to kind of carry through there. So I'll probably do just a little bit more on the horses, a little bit more on the ground, you know, and the fun thing about working the grounds, like let me show you. I'll take a lighter yellow. I'll tone it down, a little bit of my siennas and stuff in it, but the burnt siennas and stuff, but yellow, some of the dirty colors and stuff here. And you can even use this knife to establish some of those linear perspective planes. So, you know, right out through here, I may have some heavier and some bushes and stuff like that, but then those marks recede. So you want this gentle receding of the mark. Does that make sense? You want marks, brush marks, knife edges, all that kind of stuff is detail. So you want to put a lot of that up in here, right? You want some of that, a lot of that, right, like back up in here. And, you know, some of the grasses and stuff like that. But then you want it to slowly start to get smaller back through here as you go further back, right? So they're kind of looking down on that horse there. But it's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed this one. I'm going to look at it for a while, though, to make absolutely sure. We'll put those of you that are, you know, in the subscribers and stuff to the channel, that members and stuff to it. We'll put some final photos and stuff like that for you, so that you have some more things to look at and everything. But yeah, see, I just want to put some of these marks of these colors. And so this one, you know, got a little bit of, you know, I'll be honest with you guys, this one got a little away from me in that I started to get more detail in than I was originally thinking. But boy, I do like it. I like, you know, how some of this has come out. I want to maybe strengthen this arm one more time here. And, you know, that's where you know, we'll look for those details, those edges and stuff. So I'll probably want to do that. But I'll do that. You'll see some of that in the finals, in the final photos and stuff. But as that starts to dry up, you know, you think you have it and you want, oh, maybe I'll do it a little bit more. Mix up some more of that thicker coloring there and just hit that. Yeah, that's better. Give him a softer, little bit of whitish gray. Anytime you get that gray, the grays of that medium beige and that blue, just beautiful grays here in this painting. And we'll just kind of hit that. But a lot of fun and a lot of detail and stuff. And you can change it up, add more horses back through there. I'm going to keep it kind of simplistic. One of the other things that you could add to it, and you've seen me add this before, you should, you know, usually I always kept my rope on the right side, but, you know, you could add like a real fun, just a swirl here, and of, you know, a rope coming right up here up onto this side. The swirl of the rope, like he has it there. And, you know, just everything. I use just a corner of this brush and swirl it a few times and stuff, as you can put in. You'll see me in a lot of the other Westerns. I'll put the ropes in and stuff. And so I'll swirl it a few times there, and if I feel like I don't have a real good edge here, you just take some water with it and just clean it right back off, you know, to make it a smaller. If you get a little too big or you get a little uncontrolled there, you know, just take some water and swirl that off. Take it off, and then re-swirl it again, you know, with some of the other colors. And usually down towards the bottom, I'll put on a lot of the light and stuff with it. But yeah, just, you know, keep it really, really casual here and impressionistic. That's right. You don't want to get a whole bunch of lines and stuff here right up there. Let's push in just a little bit of that there, just to show that that's better. Maybe take that rope, is a little too clean, and run just a bit of the medium beige in there. But I'll probably run it a couple more times, but you can just get the idea of that running in there And we'll clean up that lower edge here. There we go. Maybe a little bit of that blue, and burnt sienna is the nice shadow in there. That's better. There we go. Just like the idea of a rope there. Let that, it's getting really a lot of thick paint there, so it's hard to get that swirl. So I'll let that dry and maybe swirl it 1 or 2 more times there to get that final look to it there. But that's what we're going to do. That's what I'm going to do. Just set up some final little lights and stuff, dragging some of these textures and lights and stuff around. And, you know, like here, I take some of this burnt sienna, maybe a little bit of the yellow, model this up onto the brush, and just drag that around that side. It gives just the impression of the edge of those chaps, see? And you don't, and that's what I love about the Impressionism. You drag the shape, but you don't sit there and try to paint it perfectly, because that actually destroys it. So you just drag the shape, you know. Here we go. A few little marks. There, soften that up. But I love it. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I'm going to add probably just a little bit more because that's what I'll do. But I'll put it away for a bit because it's, you know, I've had it on the easel here for several days, so I'll put it away for a little bit, maybe pull and not look at it, maybe pull it back out as a week from now, and I bet you I end up, you know, adding like little things like I see right now I do want to add is like the edge, a sharper edge to this hat right here. And I might do it right with the knife. That looks a little bit better. I like how you get that skipping. See how you get that skipping? I do like that little skip that comes from the knife. Just rotate the knife down just a bit, and you get that little skipping, which makes like little shines, you know, little tiny shines on it. I like that. And I can put a darker little edge on it, on the edge of that hat there. That's not too bad. But, you know, so I'll look at that kind of stuff and reevaluate it and stuff. But it's really a lot of fun. The painting came out pretty nice. You could add more details if you want, but I'm going to leave it really casual. I love it. And let's bring that horse's eye up just a bit. And yeah, and I'll look at those horses there to make sure I get the perspectives and stuff up just a bit more. I might increase the size of that one slightly, but you know, it depends on how my lines and stuff here lighten up. But you know, size-wise and stuff going back, the perspective is there. So size-wise going back, so that one to that one to that. So that's there, but I'll take a look at it, okay? So there you go, guys, okay? Hope you enjoyed it. I had a great time painting this one with you over the course of the several days that it took us to do this. But, yeah, and if you have any comments or anything, make sure you hit the comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We're going to do a lot more. I'm going to do a series now starting up here through the winter of smaller ones. Single subject stuff, maybe, you know, horsemen and stuff. And I am going to do that Indian on the Appaloosa, and you know, for my Western painters. And then we're going to do the same thing with some of our others, okay? So there you guys go. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a great time painting with you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe, and I'll see you back here on the next one. Bye-bye.